1, 2, 3. Hello there. Good
Hi,
morning.
Katja. Good morning.
Nice to have you here today in the spotlight. Ah,
I'm
and
frightened what you're going to ask me.
yes, well, I'm going to ask you about what happened in Spain.
Mhm.
When I came and joined you all after Jack had already been there for a while and done his weekend with the training for trainers and that, and I came and joined you, I could see that you were different.
Mm.
And I mean, I've heard the story before, but I'd love to hear it again. And also, both of us, we want to share it with the world, that people might get inspired by what happened to you. So, would you like to tell us what happened and how that came about?
Yes, I'd love to, but before I do, can I just quickly ask you, um, what was it that you noticed? What did you see? Because you hadn't seen me for a while, and you're saying you saw something different in me. What?
Yes, it was.
Just.
I'm just thinking how to put it into words because it was. I don't know. You had grown.
Mm,
You were slightly bigger or more substantial or um, more grounded,
mm,
more secure within yourself, more like really landed on planet Earth.
mm,
It's
mm,
just like, and I could already see some physical changes in you in the way you were walking.
mm, mm,
And I saw this glow, little glow in. I mean, I when I came back, I was in a pretty good place
mm,
myself.
mm,
I mean, this might sound weird, but my grandmother had just died, and I had spent the last week with her, and I'd seen her light in the
mm,
last few days. I could see how she was letting go of her conditioning, or she was letting go of all the things that mattered to her, more and more and more. And the more she did, the more the light came through her.
mm,
And I recognized that sort of light, not that you were passing like she did,
mm,
but I
mm,
saw that sort of light coming through you more,
mm,
as if you as well had let go of a lot of things that got in the way of this light, because
mm,
it's who we really are.
mm.
I could see that, and then you started, of course, telling the story of what happened, and so that made sense.
Mm.
I instantly noticed a stronger presence around you than before, and that was
Mm,
always a beautiful presence whenever I was with you. So
mm.
it was pretty amazing.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for saying that. No, it helps me reconnect with what the change was, if you like, because now for me it's now 6 weeks later, and I've been very busy since I've come back from Spain. I've been very busy with building and maintenance work. We've got people helping here, and I've been help doing some physical work with them, and um, as well as attending to lots of questions and so on. So I am aware that in order to do this interview, I have to remember and retell the story, if you like. Because now it's 6 weeks later, it's now a story that happened, and that's not to belittle what happened, but it's as time moves, it becomes integrated, or it grounds in a different way. So it's quite interesting you saying that then you saw that I was more grounded, because it feels like what's happened since then is just going back to life. That felt like what happened in Spain was a very peak experience, and now I've just been getting on with life, or getting on with the day-to-day stuff. And I noticed for me that I had to remember the story in order to be able to talk about it with the sense of awe, actually, the sense of awe at actually what happened, because it was a very powerful experience. It was very powerful. Would it be useful for me to give a little background about the health issue?
Yeah, probably would, for people who've never known you before. But you know, the thing that I wanted just to mention, and
Sure.
when you just said that, isn't it amazing how we try to fill the space that appears in such a peak experience? How afterwards, when we go back to life, and when we then, when this peak experience somehow becomes a memory, that we sort of fill it with the meaning again that we want to give it, and it sort of becomes a thing.
Yeah.
But there's a way somehow, and I can see this with my grandmother. There was moments where I was in utter bliss and everything fell away, and there is a way of remembering that space, because that's what who we really are, and the rest of it is just filling material of thought and memories and making sense of things, trying to understand. You know, catching myself a lot that I'm far away from it, but I can still sense that place within me that's there. So that's nice. Yeah, but I think it's a good idea to go back. So if you want to just a little summary or something about how it would make sense for people what you're about to share.
Okay. Okay, I'll try and say it as short as I can. I developed somewhere about 15, 16 years ago, I developed a health issue which was I'm not sure, a sclerosis on the spinal column, which is a singular version of multiple sclerosis. So the symptoms of that are like mild multiple sclerosis. So it means that I fatigue easily. I have had all sorts of other symptoms, my loss of balance. I can't walk very far. I have a variety of other symptoms. At its worst, a couple of years ago, there was a sense of my brain becoming more and more tired, and I couldn't concentrate very easily, especially in the summer, in the heat. So generally, a sense of loss of balance and collapse would be the main issues, and the collapse could include my ability to think clearly. I would close down, as it were, and so that was my experience for the last 15 years, and the symptoms would fluctuate very randomly. So some days they would be worse, some days they'd be better, and I did a lot of managing both of the physical side of it, but also of my emotional health or my emotional well-being. And that was the thing that really changed since my understanding of the three principles, that I saw that my spirits were not connected, or didn't have to connect, to what my body was doing. So if my body was in a state of exhaustion or a state of collapse, the rest of me didn't have to follow suit, and I didn't have to take it as seriously or make meaning from it like I did before. So that's a sort of précis of Mick's health condition. In addition to that, or as you'll hear in the story, what was very key to my understanding of my health condition was that my mother had multiple sclerosis, and she developed it when I was about 3, and she died from multiple sclerosis when I was 17. So I very much grew up with the environment of her having multiple sclerosis and the symptoms she had, and it was very much part of my upbringing, very much part of who I knew she was. Her as a person, I knew her with MS, and I saw her getting worse. I saw her, in the last months of her life when she went downhill very rapidly, and that impacted me in ways that I knew, I always knew that her having MS and how me and my brothers and sisters were brought up as a result of having MS, I always knew that impacted me in a big way. And I had done lots of self-development, let's say, on that impact. And in NLP terms, it would be called imprinting. I did a considerable amount of work to re-imprint the effects of my mother's disease, had on me and my family. So that's a basic summary, if you like, of where I was up until the 3 principles, and then the deepening of my 3 principles understanding.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So it's like that's the memories or the past, like the background story now.
Yeah.
So what the question that came to my mind as well, when you did all this imprinting.
Re-imprinting, yes.
Yeah. What do you say?
Re-imprinting. There's a particular NLP technique called re-imprinting,
Okay.
which uncovers the more unconscious beliefs which have arisen as a result of an imprint experience in your childhood. And having uncovered it, there are things that NLP helps to literally reprogram how you are thinking about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I bet you that already made a difference for you. And then
For sure.
all your other self-help things, like being a Tai Chi teacher and all these things made a difference. And then coming across the principles made another difference. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, like still pre what happened in Spain. What difference did that make? Like all the work you did on yourself and then coming across the principles, maybe.
Okay. I mean, one of the things that I did was I had come across a healing type of Qigong called Spring Forest Qigong, and that had huge benefits to me. This was before the principles, and when my wife and I moved to Greece, I experienced my symptoms getting worse, and I thought I really need to do something a bit stronger, a bit more, put some more effort into getting better. and I went to the US. I went to Minneapolis, which is where my Qigong teacher resides, and I did a 6-day retreat that was hugely powerful. And during that retreat, I shifted. The result of the retreat was that I shifted the belief that it was not possible to heal MS. And at the time, I was linking my condition, if you like, I was linking that to MS. I was very much linked, although it wasn't multiple sclerosis, it was a single sclerosis. And you know, the medical profession at the time said that there is no cure. This is not going to get better. This will either stabilize or get worse. It's not going to change. It's not going to change in a positive direction. So what I came away with from the retreat was that there was the possibility of it getting better. I saw through the results of the retreat, the results I experienced, and through my trust of the stories that my Qigong teacher was saying, was that it's possible to get better from MS. And that was a huge step, if you like, you know, to fundamentally believe that it's possible to get better. Now, the kind of next step of that was that I didn't really believe it was possible for me. I believed it was possible for someone else, but I didn't really believe it was possible for me. And this was in 2008, and what I noticed was that over the next few years, the Qigong that I was doing for myself, you know, it helped manage the condition. It helped keep me afloat. It helped keep my spirits up. It helped keep my physical. It helped keep the ups and downs of the physical problems at a particular level. They didn't get worse. You know, they got worse some days, some weeks, but they didn't fundamentally go in the wrong direction. So that was where I was before coming to the principles. And when I came across the principles, the major thing that changed was seeing that separation between being at the mercy of my physical condition or being that my happiness, my well-being, my contentment, my sense of joy, my peace, all of those things were nothing to do with my physical state, nothing. So I could be in a state of exhaustion, I could be in a state of collapse, I could not take another step further, if you like, because my body had given up. And what I saw from seeing that we are living in a psychological experience, I saw that psychological experience doesn't have to be dictated by circumstance. It doesn't have to be dictated by, you know, whether I don't have the strength to lift my arm up, whether I don't have the strength to lift my leg up. Yeah, that was the big thing for me. And I also noticed what came along with that was that because, and this is where we started talking, you and I, Katja, what I started noticing was that the more contentment I had, the more easy I was in myself, and the more I accepted life exactly as it was. No, I didn't want to change anything. The more I just, I think, you know, Byron Katie has a book called Loving What Is. the more I came into a sense of contentment, and beyond contentment into joy at exactly how things were, I noticed my physical condition got better. So there was an improvement. And that was not to do with me doing more Qigong or practicing harder, which is what I'd always suspected. If I want to get better, I had to practice Qigong harder. That was where I was before the principles, if you see what I mean. I felt it was down to me to be good at making myself better, and I felt a bit of a failure when I didn't.
Can I ask a little question? Just
please do. I think that's probably as much as I can say about the kind of pre-Spain bit. Yeah.
Just a little one, because you said something like, since you fully accepted what is, and it sounds like this is something somebody could just decide, okay, I'm now going to accept what is, you know, I'm going to do this better. And I just want you to sort of explain that, because, you know, we've spoken a lot of times, and I sort of see that as well in my story as something that just happens, that this acceptance appears from the understanding rather than doing that, or because, you know, it might sound like this is okay, I just have to accept what is. And this is not what you mean, is it?
No, and also I wouldn't say that I always do accept what is.
Yes.
Is the other side. What I would say is what my initial insights from the principles understanding gave me was gave me the potential to accept what is. So I saw that the circumstance wasn't there wasn't a direct link between the circumstance and how I was feeling. There wasn't, you know, it wasn't like pushing a button. It wasn't like my legs are exhausted and therefore the depressed button gets pushed, which is what it had felt like. It had felt like my feelings, my sense of despair or giving up or depression or hopelessness, it felt like all of those feelings were previously caused by the symptoms. It felt a very direct link. It felt like, you know, I get a collapse in my lower back so that I can't hold myself properly, and that pushes the button of it's hopeless. That's how it did feel. And so what I mean by acceptance, I think, is that seeing that there isn't that link, that doesn't have to push my hopeless button. The only way that I can push the hopeless button is having the hopeless thought. And that's different. And the hopeless thought can change by itself. It can change through thinking about something else. Not that I do thinking about something else, but if my mind is taken away from the hopeless thought, you know, if someone rings up who I hadn't heard from a long time, and I could be really excited. The principles understanding allowed me to notice that thought changes. It allowed me to notice that thought was where my feelings came from, not the other way around. It allowed me to notice that my I keep going back to the word spirits because I watched a very inspiring talk by Marilyn Wendler on the Three Principles movie site, and she used the word spirits for this distinction between how you feel and what you're feeling like physically, and that, when your spirits are up or when your spirits are down is separate from whether you feel tired or whether you feel energetic. There's different things. The different that was really helpful to me. Just that word spirits, not the spirit or anything, but spirits. It was really, really helpful. Does that? I didn't.
It's a beautiful, that's now like a beautiful summary of like before what happened in Spain, and it's a nice picture already of first of all your history, and then second also what change already came through the understanding of the principles, and how your experience had nothing to do with your condition, but how you were thinking about the condition in the moment, and because that could change any moment, that was where you automatically and naturally didn't take your experience so serious anymore. So you were more relaxed about it.
Yeah.
That's what I keep telling my clients, that's the first step of not wanting to change anything, but naturally being okay with what is.
Yeah.
And I always say that's a bit of a door opener, because when we then live in those higher spirits, right, in a better mood and a better feeling, actually that our body has amazing self-healing abilities and can recover from that, because the additional stress that we create from thinking about it and having trouble around the condition adds to the condition. And if that falls away, that's already a huge advantage. But now I bet people want to hear now what happened in Spain. What was it?
Okay.
Because, I think that everything that you told us so far somewhat opened the door to be able to see something far more profound. And maybe you want to explain a little bit, like how did that happen? You told me a little bit about the discussion that was in the group on the weekend about that there is no levels.
Okay.
That in itself was very powerful when you first told me.
Well, again, a tiny bit of background, or the lead up to it, if you like, was that on the Friday night, as part of our assignments for the training, each of us was doing a presentation, and my presentation topic was on mind, the principle, or the universal principle of mind, and of the three principles, mind in some ways is the most wordless, or the most indescribable, because it's pointing to the energy behind life, the intelligence behind life, everything that exists, whether formless or in form. And people have called it God, they've called it the source. That's a sort of flavor of what it's pointing to, or what it's trying to describe, trying to give us a sense of. And so because I had given a presentation on that on the Friday, and that was very much in my awareness, this, what is mind, what is my experience of mind, how would I describe mind to someone, how does a human being connect to universal mind? How is it possible to connect to the infinite? And within that background, if you like, that was the Saturday. The last thing that happened to me when I went to bed, before I went to bed, was a friend on the course was talking about there being no levels, and that came in response to sometimes in this understanding we talk about levels of consciousness, we talk about levels of understanding, we talk about deepening our level of understanding, we talk about a higher level of consciousness or a lower level of consciousness, and so and so has a higher level of understanding than so and so, and there's all these possible comparisons. And along with those comparisons, it's easy to get into judgment or make meaning of what level we're at, or all of those things. And what my friend saw is that in the context of mind, in the context of universal mind, in the context of infinity, any talk about levels is absurd. Well, not absurd, but it's, when we're talking about levels, that this is higher than this, and this is higher than, or this is lower than this, we're talking about such a small human framework that in the context of infinity, it's just so relative. It's like Einstein's theory of relativity. It's like that's where we're talking. We're talking relative to this, to this, to this, to this. But when you kind of open your gaze, if you like, to the infinite, it's infinite down, it's infinite up, it's infinite forwards, it's infinite backwards, it's infinite everywhere. And this conversation we had, I saw something about that, probably at about midnight, or quarter past midnight or something. And so I went to bed and I wrote something in my journal, my daily journal, and woke up about 2.5 hours later. And that conversation was just still mulling around in my head, or in my system, I would say, more than in my head. I was incredibly relaxed and incredibly thoughtless. I was very much in a state of connecting to that infinite, and I was in a state of appreciating the lack of levels. I was in a state of appreciating the awesomeness of what we're made of, the awesomeness of life, the awesomeness of that we exist in that infinite potential. And in that space, I noticed that the more and more I mean, it starts getting a little bit wordless, but the more and more I surrendered into that feeling, the more and more I opened my awareness into that feeling, and the more I felt safe, the more I felt loved, the more I felt I was becoming love. I was becoming the same as that infinite potential. I felt like I was dissolving me into something that I was already. And I don't know how long this continued, but it continued for a while. And physically, I just felt completely dissolved. And I saw that the only way that I could exist separate or distinct from that beautiful magnificence, the only way that I could exist was through thought, through the power of thought. The only way that as soon as there's I, that I is thought. Before the I, before that thought, there's just indescribable what Jack Pransky would call peace, love, and wisdom. And that energy, it's an energy, it's an intelligence, it's a feeling, it's a I experienced it as the fabric of the form and the formless. And I saw that the I that was my separation into existence, or into awareness, or into this is me, I saw that thought was also made of the same energy. So there was no problem. It was like that. Sometimes the word ego is used in a judgmental way to say, well, that's just your ego, or blah blah blah. And what it means is that as soon as we separate from the perspective of the I, or from the perspective of the ego, we're no longer connected. But actually what I saw was that the whole thing is inseparable. We can never be separate. We can never be separate from what makes us. We can never be separate from from peace, love, and wisdom, we can just have the illusion that we're separate, and that seeing that initial, kind of just a shift, minute shift into illusion, and then the whole story begins. The whole story of Mick comes into experience. So there I was, floating in. I mean, my experience of it was floating like a spaceman in the middle of infinity, and in the midst of that, there was less and less. Well, there was kind of no thought by that stage, except seeing that I was created by thought. In the midst of that space came a memory of what Sid Banks had said, and my recollection was that he'd said, if you can find the one beautiful thought, your world will change forever, or change completely, or I can't remember what he said exactly, but it was something about if you can find the one beautiful thought, life will be completely different. And that was a memory that, memory of that statement just kind of came into my awareness, and a millisecond behind it came the knowing that the one beautiful thought was about to come. I can't explain it, but it was just so fast. It was so, if I can find the one beautiful thought, oh, here it is. I knew that here was going to be the one beautiful thought. So it wasn't, there was no searching, there was no kind of, well, if you can search hard, you'll find the one beautiful thought. It wasn't at all like that. It was just, it came out of the blue. It came out of that space. And the beautiful thought that I had was, I mean, even talking about it now, it kind of seems odd to call it beautiful, but the beautiful thought that I had was, I have created my health condition in order to hold my mother so close to me that I will never forget her. And because I didn't have memories of her other than with MS. And so, innocently, my unconscious, my system had created this incredibly clever. I mean, how intelligent is that? A way of being able to remember my mother day by day, intimately, by holding her in my system, holding her in my physical system as this is what she experienced, even though it's not actually what she experienced, it's a taste of what she experienced. And I could then get to feel her every day. I mean, thinking about it now, it's like exquisite. Who could come up with such a good system? And as soon as I had that thought that I have created my sclerosis, completely innocently, completely unconsciously, completely doing the best I knew how to do. As soon as I saw that thought, all sorts happened. Basically, all sorts happened. If I remember rightly, that thought came into my awareness, and there were hundreds of other thoughts came on the back of it. So there was the thought that I have to find good memories of my mother without the sclerosis. I can now heal. I don't need to hold on to that thought anymore because that's not serving my mother. It's, if I find a different way of remembering my mother, what would I need this for? Was another thought. I had the thought that, God, that was a stupid thing to do. I had the thought that that was an exquisitely intelligent thing to do. I had the thought that I can't remember but there are a whole host of other thoughts. And essentially what happened was that I ended up crying, sobbing for about 2 hours. And just more and more it was a combination of grief at the loss of my mother. It was a combination of the wasted time that I've had since having this condition. It was a combination of the stress that I put on other people by having this condition, like my wife. I was crying with joy. I was crying with joy at having seen this. I was crying at the awesomeness of the power of thought, and the awesomeness of what we have been given by Sid Banks's enlightenment, and the fact that he could translate it into words, that he could translate it into something that can be passed on. I mean, those were some of the kind of thoughts that I was crying with, if you like, and it just, and I was crying at the, at feeling so blessed, feeling blessed that I had got to this place in my life and seen the size of that. And I was feeling blessed that I was on the Jack Pransky training. I was feeling blessed that it's possible for, when Sid says we are one thought away from a new world, that can sound like a nice theory. It can sound like, oh well, that's, that'll happen to someone. And it'd be really nice if that happened to me, but it's probably not going to. And what I was crying for was just the exquisiteness that it's always there. That potential is there every single second of our lives. And you know, as powerful as that was, my experience in that moment was, I was also, you know, it came with the awe that if this is possible, then what else is possible? You know, this is just Mick seeing the cause of his sclerosis, and maybe that will heal. You know, maybe his sclerosis will get better, and maybe not. But seeing the power that this human being could create such a physical change in his system, he could change his life in a really significant way, you know, for the past 15 years. But also the point, you know, my mother died when I was 17, so the point between when I developed the sclerosis, you know, all of that time I must have been building up to developing the sclerosis. So seeing all of that power that we have, and we're constantly using it innocently, we're constantly using that power to create our lives. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. I've run out in terms of that bit anyway.
Don't know what to say. You know, I again felt so touched when you shared this now, that I knew I should have organized some tissues before we started. So I had to, I mean, how can you know, the funny thing is though, Mick, you know, when I came, I could already see physical changes in you. You know, you're saying you don't know whether things are gonna change or not. I can already see, I could see you walking around without your stick, and you were like faster on your feet than I've ever seen you before. So for me, it looked like the condition has dropped. You know, it dropped because, and you know, in your sharing, you know, when you first told me, I also recognized the word of condition. You know, we're using this word for a health condition all the time, but don't ever really recognize that there's conditioning behind the condition. And I mean, we don't know, and I think trying to understand is a real trap. But just living in the feeling of knowing that such a condition can just be dropped, because the conditioning thought that was underlying the whole thing disappeared because it burst like a bubble. That's what gives me hope, right? And when I've got things going on with myself, that just knowing that it happened, you know, it happened to you. It's somebody we know, you know, that's not just in a book, or it's just, it's very powerful. Maybe, do you want to share a little bit about what you told me when you sort of noticed what was going on in your physical body afterwards? What was happening there?
Well, after the sobbing, the 2 hours sobbing or something, it felt like I had so much energy. It felt like my legs felt completely filled with energy in a way that I mean, there's quite a lot of things in that I experience and have experienced in my body that is quite difficult to describe, but the overriding sense was that I'd been filled with energy, and it was it had balanced. So my left-right side was balanced, and my upper and lower bodies were balanced, and my walking, like you're saying, my walking was much faster and much stronger. I didn't feel like I was going to lose balance. I did, in the rest of the time in Spain, I did much more physical activity than I would normally. I had a confidence. I had a real confidence in my physical strength. I mean, going up and down stairs, I remember that, you know, normally I would be holding onto the banister or the side of the wall, just to always have some kind of steadiness, always have some kind of preparing for losing my balance. Even if my balance was actually okay in that moment, I would always be preparing. And I noticed that I was flowing up and down stairs much more easily without having to hold on. Using my stick, hardly using my stick at all. I don't remember using my stick the rest of the time in Spain. And that continued. I mean, that sense of energy, that sense of strength, that sense of confidence continued for probably about a week, maybe 2 weeks after I came back from Spain. And if you were to look at the difference in how much I was doing, you know, from say a year ago to what I have done in the last 5 weeks since being at home, I mean, it's just huge change. Much more physical activity, much more preparedness to engage with physical activity. And it's like I like doing DIY stuff. You know, I like being active. I like fixing things and so on. And over the years, in the past 15 years, 14 years, I've done less and less, to the point where we've now had to get a couple of friends in to help with maintenance work. And you know, normally there's a lot of the stuff on the house that I would have done myself, but now it's like I feel, well, that's, you know, I can do more right now. I mean, my physical state is not as good as it was in Spain. I noticed a couple of weeks after being back, I noticed there was a little bit drop in my confidence. I had the doubts. I started making meaning of the doubts, or making meaning of, oh, you know, that was just because I was in Spain and I was in a Three Principles community, and it was just all, you know, now that I'm back in my real life, you know, it's going to wear off. And I've come out the other side of the doubts and just seen, well, this has been a process of integration. It's been a process of you know, I think okay, I mean, this is my personal belief, but you know, I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but I have a belief that that kind of experience needs to be integrated, and our lives readjust in relation to it. And I think that's what's been happening. And I know that, you know, people have just, we had some friends out in this last week, and they said how different I seemed to the last time they saw me in Greece, which is a little bit like what you were saying when you first saw me in Spain. It's like that there is a strength and there's a confidence, there's a groundedness that, yeah, it's just, I suppose it has been very easy for me to kind of look at the times when my legs have felt a little bit weak or a little bit collapsed, or my balance has gone, and it's like, oh, it's reverting, and then I kind of step back and give myself a break and think, well, actually, it's been huge. The change is huge.
The thing is that I noticed with these shifts that I had, that you get used to the shift you had.
Yeah.
Sort of, first of all, it looks really all exciting and awesome, and you notice this big change, and then after a while, it's not that sexy anymore.
Yeah.
It's like it becomes like normal. You get used to it, and then it really
Yeah.
looks like as if it didn't happen, or it reversed a bit, and then the doubting sort of talks us out of what is.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
But when you then hear others say that to you, that they notice a change in you, and say, yeah, but that wasn't that big, and they say, yes, it was. They can notice it.
Yeah.
So there's a danger in sort of getting used to it, to the feeling within the body that first felt so different becomes normal again. And then it nearly feels like it is like before.
Yeah.
But with my chronic health stuff, some of the shifts I had suddenly, but others came really, came so gentle that I didn't even notice. Until one day I was looking at my legs and I thought, they don't hurt anymore. My legs don't hurt anymore. Where's the pain gone, right? It's just gone. That sort of chronic niggling pain that used to be there all the time suddenly wasn't there anymore. And it wasn't even something you noticed. So I think that when the body goes back to its natural balance, that's not really something spectacular in the long term. I mean, tell us about your Tai Chi class.
Well, yeah, one of the things that I think one of the things I saw in Spain was that I want to do more Tai Chi for myself, and I also think that will be an extremely good way of rebuilding the muscle, or gently rebuilding neural pathways and so on, which have been disused for so long. And so I did a Tai Chi session for myself before I was due to be teaching someone in a couple of days when I got back, and I did a Tai Chi session for myself, and it was just a completely different experience. I mean, it was better than I've ever done Tai Chi before my health condition. It was better than that. It was like parts of me were opened. Parts of my joints and the way I was moving was just so much more connected and open and flowing, that it was beautiful, really beautiful. And then I did this session with my friend where I was teaching him, and previously I would be teaching him and demonstrating postures or the form, and I would be able to do about 20 minutes worth before I'd have to sit down and watch him or adjust him from sitting down. And this particular session, straight after I came back from Spain, we went on I was doing demonstrating and so on for about an hour and 3/4. And so that was, without a break, that was a bit different.
Yes.
That was a bit different. So and he certainly noticed the difference. And I think, if I remember what I said at the beginning about the coming back from the Qigong retreat and knowing that it was possible to heal, but it wasn't possible for me. And what I feel as a result of that insight in Spain, I now know that it's possible for me to heal. I think when I immediately came back from Spain, I thought, I had the thought that I have healed. And it's kind of an interesting one, because at every step of anything, we're always making meaning. We're always having thoughts about our experience. It's just what it means to be human. We think, and we have thoughts, and we make meaning, and that's fine. And the meaning I made in the first few days of being back in England, not in England, in Greece, was that I have healed. And I wouldn't say it quite as categorically as that now, but I would say categorically that I can heal. I would say categorically that there's no doubt in my mind that I have the potential to heal from a condition that I innocently created in the first place. And the same power that allows me to create this problem, the same power is still there to allow me to undo it. Not that I am, kind of Superman, or, I can now heal myself, or, it's just an understanding that there is that, we're made of that universal mind. We're plugged into that universal mind. We're plugged into we're plugged into universal love, and I think, I've used the word power a few times on this, I seem to remember, and it's easy to think of power in terms of, well, for me, this is my previous interpretation of power. It's easy to think of power in terms of something very dramatic, or something very, like some of the thunderstorms we have here in Greece are just extraordinarily powerful, and the buildings shake, and nature's power seems awesome. And if I bring to mind that initial sense which allowed the insight, which allowed this seeing, it was a very different kind of power. It was love. It was just being touched at such a deep level, or being held at such a deep level, and seeing that we are never separate from that. We're never separate from that safety. you know, safety and love and peace and, you know, those good feelings. Is the fabric of life, and it's like that. That's such a it's so nice to know that. I mean,
Because what I hear,
nice is such a. I mean, it's a kind of flip word, but it's just, you know, God, it's good to know that.
yeah, well, it's a sort of what I hear from you in that is that we are that despite our condition.
Yeah.
Whatever we've created in the endless reference points that we created around nothing, right? So we become something, but we are still that
Yeah.
potential. And when you first shared this with me, when you were talking about no layers, right, and that this
No
thing,
levels. Yeah.
this beingness just
Yeah.
extends infinitely in all directions. I could see this. It was going in all directions, and there was, I don't know how to describe it. It's really, it felt like it was expanding, and at the same time it was shrinking. There was nowhere to go because it's all of it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter where in that all of it, where we hang our reference points, we're still all of it.
Yeah.
You know, do you know those on a playground here in Germany, we have a lot of those, we call them spiders, and children climb into them, and there's ropes. They're connected to different points. So if every point, every corner bit where the ropes are attached, that's a reference point. You have like a structure, like those spider things, and it's hanging in that space, but it's still the space. And it doesn't matter where you hang in, what kind of condition, it's still all of it. That really just hit me again, is to see that what you experienced, you don't need to live in that experience all the time, but just knowing that it's there is where we can relax into that. Do you remember when I used to say just relaxing into life? Because life is that. And those reference points can change any time, and they can even fall away at times, and because they're just one thing.
I've heard other people describe it as a safety net, you know, knowing that there's the safety net, that you know, when we fall, where is there to fall? That's where we're falling into that fabric. We're falling into the fabric of life, the fabric of isness. I don't know if that's sorry, you're the interviewer.
Well, it has blown my interviewer's mind a little bit. So what else can you say after this? You know. I can just think of saying thank you and for sharing it, and sharing it with all of us, really, to watch again and again and again.
Well, thank you. Really, thank you for your curiosity and also your wanting to share this with people, and because I've really enjoyed just reconnecting with that for myself, you know, in a sense, I think I said somewhere along the line, it's just, you know, living day to day, we don't necessarily get to touch. You know, this has allowed me to reconnect to that feeling, or reconnect to that preciousness. You know, the preciousness of what we have, the gift that we have, or the gifts that we have. And you know, I have to say, in the last few weeks, I haven't necessarily been appreciating that. So it's been lovely. It's been lovely to kind of, it almost feels like giving my appreciation a stroke. You know?
Yeah. Oh,
And
you
it's
know
been
what
really
comes
nice.
to mind is what Dickens says. He says going to the filling station.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like, you know, you're not always connected to the fresh energy because you go out and use it up. You know, you have a full tank and you go out and live, and then you come back to the filling station and recharge.
Yeah.
I love that metaphor because it's really how it works for me, because, you know, I had a little bit of a deep realization, I would say, when I watched my grandmother in her last hours while she was still around, and I could see how she was letting go of everything that was that mattered to her, and everything that was important more and more. And the more she did, the more light was shining through her. And I was giving a promise, really, in that moment, that I want to be doing this in life, letting go of the things that condition me, letting go of the things that matter to me, or the things that feel important to me right now, because you don't need to believe those, because they're just those reference points. And there's a far more enjoyable kind of living when we live with loose reference points, and we can be in the flow. And I sort of gave a promise, and you know what, I forgot. You know, and it's just like, oh, okay, well, this actually helps me reminding, you know. And I've now got my grand's wedding ring, and I'm going to wear it because I want it to help me, to remind me of that conditioning. We don't have to believe any of it. We can be far more curious about seeing something new than holding on to what we know. And so you know, your sharing today is just totally inspiring in that regard, because look at what the fresh thought was. Wow, what a change, and what a potential that brings. So thank you.
Thank you.